Oh, hello there. Sorry, I didn't see you. Welcome to the meeting. It's great to see all your faces, and thank you for being on time. It's been really nice seeing all of your messages in the group chat, reading your reflections on the Hunduke and everything. So thank you very much for engaging with the program. And yeah, today we have a very exciting lineup, and we're going to quickly go through what we have lined up. And as I'm introducing this, please remember to change your name so we can see your team number. So just next to your name, you can put a number 1 if you're on team 1, or a number 5 if you're on team 5. And that helps us to make the breakout rooms later in your teams. So here we will be starting with, of course, my welcoming, and then soon we'll be going into a bit of a discussion looking at who is God to me. And then later on, we'll be watching some videos in teams, and not all the teams will be watching the same video. So we have 5 videos for 15 teams. And afterwards, we'll get an opportunity to discuss the different glimpses of God that we'll see in those different videos. And then it's our privilege to have our Pastor Naukimi from New Jersey giving the main talk before going into a Q&A session. So Pastor Naukimi has kindly offered to spend some extra time with us, and he's happy and ready to answer your questions. So later on, if you have any questions during his talk, please send them to me. You can message me directly in the chat, and I can't guarantee that we'll get an opportunity to answer every question, but if you're particularly eager, why not send that question in quickly so you have a better chance. And then before closing, we'll have another team sharing and some announcements to look at what's happening next week. So yeah, that's the lineup for today. But before we go any further, I'd like to ask you all to please join me in an opening prayer. Okay, dear Heavenly Parent and true parents, thank you so much for this meeting and for this program. We're very grateful for everyone who's joining. We've even had a few people join us since last week, so we're extremely grateful for this program and for everyone's attendance. And I pray that today we can learn more about you, the reality of God, and figure out our relationship with you, and hear from each other about how each one of us relates to you and how we can learn to love you more. So please be with us for the rest of this program, and I report this prayer on behalf of all of my brothers and sisters on the school in my name, Aaron Isaac Rai, son of a blessed central family, are Jew. Okay, so yeah, thanks everyone for joining that prayer. And now, since this was such a hit last week, we want to get your insights and hear from you. And we have 2 links here, one for teams 1 to 6 and the other one for teams 7 to 15. If your QR code is not working or you're unable to scan it, please head to the chat. Sarah has kindly put the links in there. So if you'd rather use the link, you can just click on the one for your team and share your thoughts on this question, this very interesting question: who is God to me? So while you're opening up that link, I guess I'll share some of my thoughts. And actually, this is a very relevant question to me because I study religion at university. So this is something I'm forced to think about very often. And I think the idea that I connect to most, and I'm sure many of you will be able to relate to this, is this idea that God is my parent and God is my heavenly parent. And I understand my relationship to him as being one of a son to a parent. And that gives me a lot of strength. I find my identity in that. But maybe you have a different perspective, or maybe you have the same one. I'd love to hear all your thoughts. And very soon you will see them popping up on the screen. So thank you very much. I can see the first few answers coming through. So yeah, some people are saying some similar things to what I shared in terms of seeing God as a loving parent, a father. God is encouraging, the greatest parent, the reason why I was born. Wow, that's dramatic. I like that. Yeah, the light of love. That's very poetic. A friend. I think it's really nice if you can see God as a friend, as a source of shelter. That shows that you have a special relationship with God, and it doesn't have to be so formal, right? You don't have to see God as your master, but if you can see God as a friend, I think that's really beautiful. And looking at the other slider, the other Mentimeter, God is a listener, a loving parent, an utmost supporter, someone who's always there, and someone who respects me. I think that's a very good comment, actually. I think often we can think of God as someone that we respect, but do we realize that God respects us as well? I think that's a really good perspective on this relationship. A loving companion, supporting partner, a practical parent. So yeah, I think the point there would be, well, at least the way I see it, is that God is not just an impersonal parent that we can't relate to and who can't help us in our daily lives, but God is this practical parent who can support us in many, many ways. A moral north. Okay, I like that. I'll read a few more. Thanks for all your answers. My conscience, conscious, my creator. It's a bit difficult to read the ones that are sideways. The best version of me. Okay, that's great. I think it's important to remember, right, that each one of us is an embodiment of God. We all manifest God in different ways, and we all have this divine essence. So through us, people can learn more about God. And I think that's such an amazing truth, such an amazing responsibility, in fact, to convey God's love to each other. Oh, yeah, thank you. These keep coming in. I'll read a few more before we move on, but this is fantastic. Thanks for all the answers so far. And God is truth. Okay. God is, I think that says counselor. Yeah, God is someone you can speak to, right? Someone who can give you advice, you can pray to. All right, last 30 seconds, last opportunity to put some answers in. All right, God is someone who gives direction and purpose. I completely agree with that. I think that's one of the most beneficial consequences of having a relationship with God. If we can align our purpose with God's purpose and head in the same direction, then we get a lot more meaning in our lives. I'm seeing love is coming up as a big answer, so I imagine a lot of you have put that, and that's a very lovely way to describe God. God is love. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. That was very interesting. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts. And next, we'll have an exciting new activity that we haven't, I don't think we had last week. And we will be watching these videos in our teams. So like I said earlier, we have 5 different videos for the 15 teams. So we'll be engaging as a group with many different glimpses of God. And all these videos will be touching on God, and we can learn unique perspectives. So if you do not know your team, if you weren't here last week or you can't remember, please head to the WhatsApp group chat and click on the booklet or a link that will be shared where you can access the team lists. But if you do know your team, later on we'll have, or if you click at the bottom and you select the breakout rooms, you can choose your own team's breakout room. So if you just if you go to the bottom, you'll see 3 circles and it says more. If you click on more, then you can go up and select breakout rooms. And these will be, I think, not just yet, but maybe soon, we'll see a list of the teams and you can choose which breakout room to join. But before we go into our breakout rooms, we will look at some questions to discuss in your team. So once you've watch the video, and while you're watching the video, you can think about these questions so that once the video has ended, you can give your answers to your teammates. So let's look at them quickly. So the first question we want you to discuss is, God is explained in diverse ways in different philosophies and religions and by different people. What kind of a conceptualization of God do you relate to? Who do you think God is, and what is he like, or what he is like? Number two, how does the conceptualization of God portrayed in the video align with or differ from your own views? And I think if I were in your discussion, the point I would like to hear is how you differ from the view presented. I think that's always interesting to hear. It can be a bit boring if everyone just says, I completely agree with everything that was said in the video. So if you do disagree and something's said and you think, you know what, I don't think it's quite like that, please do raise your issue. And lastly, how does the portrayal of God in the video align or contrast with the unificationist view of God? So in the second question, we'll be looking at our own views, and maybe you feel like your own view is completely the same as the unificationist view, but perhaps you have a unique perspective and not something that you would classify or describe as a typical unificationist view of God. So if you feel that way, then we could come up with some quite interesting answers to the third question. And yeah, so please bear all of these questions in mind while you're watching the video. And I think if you now click on the breakout rooms, you'll see that you can click on your name and be assigned to a breakout room. Yeah, rooms 1 to 15 are ready, and I believe the team leaders will be made into co-hosts as well. I think we're all here just yet. Yeah, if you didn't know, this meeting is being recorded. If you didn't know, now you know. But I don't think everyone is back just yet. I'm sure there are some fantastic conversations going on and people are reluctant to leave, but they'll be forced back into this main discussion in the next minute or so. Let's see. Okay, I think we're almost all here now, over 80 of us. I think that's 1 or 2 teams still on their way. But yeah, we watched 5 different videos and we got these different perspectives on God and maybe the way he behaves, the way he acts. So in the group that I joined, we looked at this video from, I think it's the Prince of Egypt, and we were looking at Moses and his relationship with God. And that was quite interesting to see how, at least the way I understood it, is that God is someone who gives us responsibilities. So he gives Moses the command to lead the Israelites, but he doesn't just leave us with those responsibilities. He also gives us the power and his strength and his support to succeed in all of these missions that he gives us. So that's something I was able to take away and share with the group. But we would like you now to speak with people from outside your team and to share what you discovered through this video. So we have 3 questions, I believe. We have some questions that we'll look at. 2 questions, and the second one split into 2. So firstly, briefly explain how God was conceptualized in the video you watched. So of course, now you'll be in breakout rooms with people who watch different videos, and how this conceptualization is similar or different to the way you understand God. And secondly, within your breakout group, how do people relate to the concepts presented in the different videos? Are there differences in which videos resonated with individuals? So on that last point, if you feel like something in particular really stood out to you, please share what that was. So now we'll be going into breakout rooms to discuss these questions. I think maybe this time we could copy and paste the questions so we can see them in the chat, just in case people forget. That would be fantastic. And now, when it comes to the breakout rooms, are we just going to split them off randomly now so they can join a random group, or do they have to choose any? Okay, so yeah, that's just being sorted out as we speak. But for the next minute or so, you can look at these discussion questions and think about your answers so you know what you'd like to say once you are assigned to a breakout room. Okay, so everyone, I think you should now have the option to join a breakout room. Thank you very much, Eugen, for organizing that. And we'll see you all in about 10 minutes. All right, enjoy your discussions, everyone. Anyway, welcome back. I hope you had great discussions in your groups. And I hope you weren't put in a group with people who watched the same video as you. I hope there were at least 2 different videos in each group. And I'm sure, because I was in a group and I heard many interesting points, you heard some really fascinating insights and opinions. So we'd like to give maybe 2 or 3 people an opportunity to share anything that you discussed in your group, maybe a point that you made, maybe a point that somebody else in your group made. And yeah, we've got about 10 minutes to hear your thoughts. So, I guess you could go to the reactions at the bottom of your screen and put your hand up, and I'll try to find you, and I'll invite you to unmute yourself and share whatever's on your mind. I heard some amazing stuff in my group, some really good points. I'd like to encourage those who are in my group to share what was said. No pressure, you don't have to, but I know you have good stuff. All right, let's see. I'll try to detect any raised hands. I'm just flicking through the gallery mode. Got 84 people here. Good stuff, guys. Hey, there we go. That's my guy. All the way downstairs, Chris van der Stork. Would you like to unmute yourself and share your thoughts?
With pleasure, I will share. So, my video that I watched was with Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about what it means to be a true Christian, and he referenced someone called Nietzsche, which is I think he was some kind of philosopher, and he said that there's only one Christian, and that is Jesus. And yeah, what Jordan Peterson was saying was that to be like a true Christian, you need to not only speak, it's very easy to speak what you believe in, or Jesus has saved me, Jesus died on the cross for me, from a Christian's point of view, right? But it's completely other level to be able to act out forgiveness, compassion, honesty in your daily life. Like it's so much harder. And I remember this one quote from someone, which I do not know who, I've forgotten who, but he said that when you understand something, it's like you can know something, but unless you have experience with it, or like unless you've acted it out, you actually don't know it. If you understand compassion, but you don't act out, you're not compassionate with other people, then you actually don't know what it means to be compassionate, even though you understand the theory. So that's what Jordan Peterson was talking about, and he gave he talks about his own experience, how he says, like I'm definitely I definitely believe in God, but he says that he isn't fully, he isn't like Christ in the sense that he does everything that he believes. So he says that he can't manage that, full 100% responsibility. yeah, that's what I took away from my video. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a brilliant summary. I feel like I don't even need to watch a video now. I feel like I got all the good stuff from you. So yeah, thank you very much, Chris, and thanks for your bravery as well, going first. So we heard about the Jordan Peterson video. If anyone would like to share about a different video that they watched, please raise your hand. You can just go to the bottom of your screen, click on reactions, and if I see your hand raised, I will go to you. So we have another few minutes for that. Oh, okay, Jessica, let's go to you. Thank you very much. Are you able to unmute yourself? Ooh. Oh, it was a clap. My bad, my bad. Just showing appreciation. Shout out to Chris, man. That was really good. Claps in the chat for you. And okay. It's my bad. I confused it. How about a hand to make a point? If I see any claps, I won't go to you. But a raised hand. I don't know. Let's see what the reactions look like. Oh, even a heart. If you love the point that you heard in your talk, why not put up a heart so I know how much you love it and how desperate you are to share?
Maybe I can share.
Yeah, yes, you can. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then I see Andrei also wants to share. I'll just quickly share. I had a video talking about probability of the universe actually creating or happening. So the Big Bang and the way it happened and the way that the Earth and we kind of created the chances of happening the way it happened. The chances are extremely low, and basically makes the point of it's quite almost impossible to get exactly how it happened. So it is saying that that had to be on purpose, that had to be an intellectual mind that made it exactly like this, because the chances are, it was comparing to throwing a dice, that you get a 6 each time when throwing a dice. For 70 times, it would take trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of years to get that. So the probability of getting that and the creation of the universe is about the same, the probability. So it says that basically, yeah, there had to be like a very like smart creator behind it to actually make it happen, that it was on purpose, it wasn't by accident. So yeah, saying that worlds and we were created by accident, it's not showing that it's not, the chances of that are very, very low. I hope I could explain well, but it was interesting to see how from a mathematical point of view or a scientific point of view, it was basically saying that there has to be a God. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, someone in my group also watched that video, and he said that it gave him goosebumps. So, yeah, I can see that was a very impactful video. And yeah, he was also sharing how you could show this video to someone who's maybe a bit more inclined to think scientifically, and it is good evidence that there is some kind of intelligent design behind the creation of the world. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Sarah. And lastly, I'd like to turn to someone who's been very active in the chat. So thank you very much, Andre. Let's hear your thoughts. Please, could you unmute yourself if you have permission? Oh yeah, there we go.
Thank you. Yeah, so in our team we had a movie about the universe, how it created the planet, and it says the planet Earth is quite small than Jupiter or Saturn, and then quite smaller than the Sun, and then there's another sun bigger than our sun, and there's another sun more bigger than the second biggest sun. And then we are living in the Milky Way, which is quite big. But there are also other galaxies which are more bigger and more far away. And our team leader was saying that maybe we're gonna go and populate that galaxies too. Yeah, I never thought about that. It's a very interesting idea. So what I think, God is like a very beautiful creator, and He create everything for us. So yeah, why not? We can go and populate that galaxies. Why not? If there is a way to live there, and also He create everything eternal. So until now, everything is eternal, and we are eternal too. So they were saying that maybe we can also go spiritual world, which is eternal, and our brother Gregor was saying that maybe also in our spiritual we can visit other galaxies because we don't have anything to do so much. We can visit other galaxies. Yeah. So God is amazing. I like. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Yeah, I think I don't want to give the wrong impression, but I actually think the Mormons have a belief similar to that, where they believe that they'll be able to have dominion over different planets, different galaxies. So it's a really interesting thought. And why not? You know, humans, we have a lot of potential. Anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but thanks for sharing about the universe. And now we will have our main event. And you will also have an opportunity to ask questions. So if you hear something raised and you think, oh, I'd like to find out more, please message me directly. So you can just click on the chat. And if you select my name, Arian MC, then you can send your question to me and I'll read it out later during our Q&A session. But for now, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. So our speaker, as you can see, is Pastor Naokimi from New Jersey, the Family Church. And yeah, some interesting information about him. He is a second gen, blessed in 2000, and he is blessed with 2 kids and, just as importantly, 2 cats. He's the former Family Federation USA president, and he has worked as an executive coach. And you might be wondering, what does someone in this kind of position study at university? And very interestingly, Pastor Naokimi studied business at college. So, you know, no matter what you study, who knows where you're going to end up. So with that introduction, let's welcome up Pastor Naokimi with a round of applause.
Thank you, Ariane, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm really honored to have this opportunity and for being invited to share a little bit with you guys. Yeah, the question that I was asked to share on was just about how to really my understanding of God and how to develop a relationship with God. And I think this is a very relevant question to explore. So yeah, I'd like to share a few of my experiences and my thoughts, and then open it up for some Q&A so that we can really make it personalized in terms of how our understanding of God can be applied to our daily lives. So yeah, I've been involved in my faith community for 25 plus years in leadership, and also growing up since high school. I've been really studying, I started studying the divine principle. But throughout that whole time, I really felt like in different stages, I was able to come to a deeper understanding of who God is in my life. And some key points really still stuck with me, and I think might be useful for anyone here. Well, I started with also starting with the definition, looked it up online. Google is very helpful. God is defined as the creator and ruler of the universe. Creator and ruler of the universe. So that's one thing about developing a relationship with God, is to try to understand first what are different characteristics or aspects of God. And even online, it says God is known as the creator and ruler of the universe. And another point that it says in the definition is the source of all moral authority. source of moral authority. So that's another interesting point to consider, is that morality and the origin of that comes and stems from God. So those are some kind of key concepts. And I would say, actually, my experience is that God is really in everything. And in fact, even in the principle, it states that depending on the time and age and culture in which religions developed, it reflected their ability to relate with God in that way. So one amazing perspective that Father and Mother Moon introduced was that really God shows up in different faiths. We don't have a monopoly on God. God actually exists, and there's different expressions of people's understanding of God, and that's how religions kind of came about. And one other interesting perspective that divine principle and unification principle discloses is that it has evolved over time based on the spiritual merit of the age and the spiritual understanding and perceptivity of humanity. So even the way that we relate with God has evolved over time. Back in the day, in the Old Testament, the primary way to relate with God was as a master and a ruler, judge. And that's how people related with God. If you did something wrong, you would be punished. That's how people experienced God back in the day. But fortunately, several thousand years later, Jesus came and introduced another aspect, a new way of relating with God, which was God the Father. And although if you do studies in Scripture, it does mention God as a father figure in the past before Jesus came, but Jesus was the first to really model it. He actually related to God as a father figure. He would pray and say, Father, and have like this conversation as if a parent-child was having that conversation. And that really opened the doorway for the rest of us to actually consider God as a father figure. So again, God exists in many ways. God as the creator, God the all-powerful being, but God the Father was first modeled with Jesus, being able to relate with God in such a way, and that again opened the access for the rest of us to do that. Now, a few thousand years after Jesus, this Father Moon also really dove deep into this concept of God and said the deepest truth of the universe is the parent-child relationship between God and us. So yeah, again, that doesn't seem too new, but the distinction here is parent-child, not just father figure, but parent-child. And parent, if we study the principle, includes both masculinity and femininity. And to state it further, they modeled not just, I think Jesus really modeled like being a filial son to God and relating to God as a father, parent-child. But really, I think Father and Mother Moon together as true parents, they modeled really this parental heart. What does that look like, feel like to relate with God as a parental figure? Both as a father and a mother figure. And I would say even further that Mother Moon, she actually explains, even emphasizes even more. And I'm going to read one passage for you from the Mother of Peace, which you guys should be familiar. It's this book right here. Right. So here's a statement. To fulfill my mission as God's only begotten daughter, I have a firm belief and unflinching will for the sake of every nation, every religion, every race. I am called to reconcile nations and races with benevolence and love. I am called to be like the ocean that accepts and absorbs the water of all rivers, big and small alike. Embodying our God, who is our Heavenly Mother, as well as Heavenly Father, I am called to embrace all who are lost and have no one to receive them, with the heart of a parent. So I'm going to put that in the group chat so you can also take a look at that passage. But yeah, the key thing here is that she really emphasizes Heavenly Mother. And I think it's actually the breaking news in one sense. Of course, Father already introduced the concept of God as a heavenly parent, but Mother Moon, she actually really emphasizes this hidden heart of Heavenly Mother that's been there throughout all of history, but we haven't really acknowledged, recognized, appreciated, engaged with for such a long time. But because she stated that, and because she's really modeling that, now we have access to relate with God as also a Heavenly Mother figure. It's beautiful. And I think that's really the preciousness of really the what we have accessible to us now is being able to relate with God in this other way. And I feel like there's another quote where Mother Moon says that 99.9% of birth and rebirth comes from the mother side. So if you think about how much focus we've been having more on vision, on truth, and so on and so forth, but if we understand the truth that 99.9% of birth and rebirth, even spiritual rebirth, comes from the mother side, how much more do we have yet to explore in terms of providing spiritual birth to others, in terms of experiencing spiritual birth within ourselves, if we can really tap into the Heavenly Mother's energy, presence, and develop a relationship there. So to me, that's kind of really new, even for me, and I'm kind of excited to explore that aspect of God that we have yet to fully explore. Finally, I would like to end with a few tips. God can be very theoretical at times. So the question is, well, how do you build a relationship with God? It's a good question. Maybe I'd like to ask the audience here, what's one challenge with building a relationship with God? You can put it in the group chat. Feels one-sided. Hard to get answers. Yeah, the conversation tends to be one-sided, right? God is silent. Speaking honestly could be a challenge, right? Yeah, so there are many challenges, and one of which is that God is invisible. And so it's hard for those who are more prone to requiring proof for things, it's hard to relate with something or someone who's invisible. But I really thought about, well, what are the universal principles of building a relationship with anyone, right? Think about your friend or someone, an acquaintance. How do you actually build a relationship with somebody? You can also put that in the group chat. Common ground. Oh, sounds like someone attended my sessions before. No. Yes, common base. Common base is one key aspect. That in building a relationship with anyone, you know, if they play chess and you play chess, or you both like video games, or you both play volleyball, having a common base is one of the key aspects of building a relationship with anyone. Same thing with God. So really finding a common base, engaging in, you know, the study, of course, learning about them is another way, so you can study about God. But having a common base with God is very important. The more you live a principled life, or your original principled life, the more you naturally have common base with God. There are some universal principles: mind-body unity, mastery of anything, experiencing growth, genuine growth, curiosity, and development. These are all original nature. Whenever you seek truth, beauty, or goodness, then you're actually resembling God's nature, and therefore you're building a stronger common base with God. Does that make sense? Whereas if you do the opposite, if you engage in behaviors that are unprincipled or a little bit deviant, then naturally it's going to feel distant. You're going to feel like, I can't relate with God. So first thing is really building a common base with God as we understand God to be. And the more foundation you have, it really helps in relating with God. One other aspect, how do you build a relationship? Okay, so you have a common base with your friend or anybody. What's another key aspect in building that relationship once you have? Oh, actually, someone already said that. Young Gil got the answer here. Spend time together. Yes, spending time together, communicating. Anytime you want to build a relationship, it requires quality time. So if you want to build a relationship with God, it does require you to spend time with God, spend time talking with God, sharing what's going on in your life, asking questions, getting answers. Yeah, even just being vulnerable and honest about the struggles that you're going through. These are all examples of communicating with God, and that naturally helps you build that relationship. So common base and communication. These are two key aspects, or give and take. That's the two key aspects of building a relationship with God. And the final point I want to say is really defining what type of relationship you want to have with God, or what aspect of God, or what type of relationship you want. So for example, do you want to get to know God as a friend? Do you want to get to know God as a father figure, as a mother figure? Regardless of what that is, be intentional. And by relating with God in such a way, then you can really hone in on that relationship. So one universal thing I would say to start with, though, is because, you know, Jesus, Mother, Father, Moon, they actually helped us understand God as a parental figure. One of the key aspects to develop a relationship with a parental figure is gratitude. Gratitude is the secret to unlocking the children's realm of heart. And so the more you can practice identifying and expressing gratitude to God, the more naturally this relationship as a parent-child will develop. So this is actually accessible to anybody, but it does require practice, and it requires intentionality. So those are some thoughts on how to build your relationship with God. And maybe the final thought I'd like to leave you with is, actually there's one Bible verse that I want to read. This is Isaiah 64:7. I'm going to put that in the group chat as well. Yet, Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay, and you are potter. We are all the work of your hand. So when I originally heard this verse or looked at it, I remember being taught that this verse meant that you have, actually it's in the divine principle, that you have no right over what you do with your life because God is the potter and you are merely clay, right? That's one interpretation of this Bible verse. But when I looked at this more recently, actually another thought occurred. And the thought that occurred was that each of us are of God, from God. Our essence, who we are, the uniqueness that we have is actually given from God. Our unique strengths, our unique weaknesses, our passions, these are all from God. And so, in one sense, together, how we really get to build a unique and personal relationship with God is by acknowledging the gifts and developing the passions that you have that come from God. So when you're able to engage in your strengths and appreciate God for them, when you're able to engage your passions and feel that joy and invite God in that joy, then you're really developing this personal, unique relationship with God. So, for example, my strength and my passion is, well, my strength is in persistence, one of my strengths. And my passion is actually training and developing, training and leadership development is my passion. And, you know, if I really see that those are things that God gave me and I feel joy through, then, and if I invite God into it, then I can uniquely feel this kind of, wow, thank you, God, for, giving me these gifts and can enjoy those things together with God. So, I just feel like that's one way to go. Like, for example, I love numbers. And so I know God loves numbers. Now, not everyone loves numbers, but my God loves numbers. And so each of you can kind of, through your own unique strengths and passions, get to know that aspect of God that is in you. And that's what I came to mind with the understanding of clay. It's moldable, but it's of God's essence. That clay is God's essence. We are of God's essence. And so the more we can uniquely craft those strengths based on the essence that God gave us, the more we can come to understand a personal God. Yep, that's basically what I have to share today. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you very much. I can see already the claps are in the chat. I'm not going to mistake it now. I know you don't want to speak, but thanks for showing your appreciation, and thank you very much, Naokimi, for those words. And yeah, I think I really like the point you made that you started with, talking about how this new way of understanding God and approaching God and relating to God has been revealed to us. And I think we are quite fortunate to be able to consider God as a parent and not just some strict master who expects a certain behavior from us and is kind of impersonal in that way. I think it's much nicer to have this understanding of God. So yeah, let's be grateful for it. And you know what I'm grateful for? All the questions that came through in the chat. So I have, I have quite a few questions. So thank you very much to everyone who sent them through. And let's start with this one. So first of all, how should we approach Hunduke? There's so much to read and it can be a bit overwhelming at times. How to decide or on what Hunduke to read? Do you have any advice on that? And some examples have been given, DP, Bible, true parent speeches, or should we be looking to other religious figures? So what do you make of that?
Great question. Right now in New Jersey, what we're doing is we're actually going to the Mother of Peace, paragraph by paragraph, maybe 3 paragraphs per day. And we read it out loud, and I share, or somebody shares like a 5-minute reflection on those. My sense with Hundoke is you don't actually need a lot. Actually, it's better to go bit by bit and seek to understand more deeply what's being shared. Then also not try, it's less about content and more about application. So it's not how much content you can consume over a certain amount of time, but it's about how you can apply even one sentence to your life and make it relevant. And so I would really recommend going piece by piece and taking ownership and being creative on how to engage that content, or have a discussion around it, or something like that. Less is more in my book. And recently, Mother did give some guidance on content. She said the future education for new members should be focused on principles of creation, true parents' achievements, and Mother's words. Those are the 3 kind of key components that she's been emphasizing recently. And even with principles of creation, she emphasized really honing in on understanding God as a heavenly parent, so a creator and a parental figure. And if you really study closely, all of it ties back to this one understanding of God as a heavenly parent. That's like the core of the truth and the hundok that we can do. It all comes back to that point.
Thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive answer. Actually, couldn't ask for much more than that. So yeah, thanks for outlining that. I wasn't aware actually of those recommendations from True Mother recently when it comes to Hundoke. So that's very useful to know. Our next question is, okay, it's set up this way. God is mother and father. Do you relate with them separately, or do you see God as one entity with both masculine and feminine aspects? Like when you pray, do you pray first to Heavenly Mother and then to Heavenly Father, or do you pray to both at the same time?
So I mean, right now I pray, Dear Heavenly Parent. So it's kind of one entity. But I think God is one, and it's everything, and it's beyond comprehension. But I do feel it's good to relate with God specifically as well. So, for example, if you have like a big goal vision that you're pursuing, maybe it's better to pray to Heavenly Father, or maybe you're feeling down and you just need some TLC. Maybe you want to, cry in tears and pray to Heavenly Mother. That's all good. It's terminology to help us relate with God in a specific aspect. So I'd encourage you to explore praying specifically to Heavenly Mother or Heavenly Father and see how the experience is. In the end, it really comes down to how you communicate and relate with God that really matters, or gives meaning to you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? What do we need? Do we need that TLC, that tummy loving care? I think that's a nice way of approaching it. Or do we need that kind of encouraging father figure? Yeah, okay. Our next question is, what does it mean to live a principled life? So, just a small question there. And how to discern whether something is principled or unprincipled.
Well, ask your central figure. No. I think we all know based on our conscience we can tell, if something we're doing is good or it's not good. Usually it's a very simple litmus test, how you feel, how your conscience feels. But generally speaking, when you do things for the sake of others, then it's generally a good thing. And when you do things that hurt others or at the expense of others, then it's generally a not so good thing. But one thing I would point out, principle states that the individual purpose and the whole purpose must be balanced. And so I really feel it's really important, just as much as it is to, live for the sake of others, you do need to take care of yourself as well, just as much. It shouldn't be at the sacrifice of yourself that you take care of others. It should actually be a mutually beneficial, for yourself and others simultaneously. That's really the principled approach. Now, the worst case is when you do things for yourself at the expense of others. That's really imbalanced. But also, I would say doing things for others and sacrificing yourself is also not balanced. So I really feel the future and the more sustainable principled approach is doing things that is beneficial for yourself and others simultaneously.
Thank you. So yeah, this balance. How can we avoid sacrificing one thing for the other and try to create good for everyone? Create goodness. Nice. Okay, we've got 4 questions left, if that's all right. Have you got time for all 4 questions? All right, thank you very much. So the next one is, do you have a personal experience with God when you could create a common base with him that you perhaps want to share?
Okay, 2 thoughts come to mind. One time I was in Taiwan. I was a missionary, 17 years old, and we had plans for sightseeing up atop of a mountain. Unfortunately, it started raining really hard, and so my host was saying, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't go today." But since I was visiting from America, I didn't have this chance to go sightseeing so often. I said, "Please, please," I begged, take us anyway." Anyway, so we went up, and then there were we went up, and then there were a mudslide somewhere. Half the road was closed, but I encouraged them, so we kept going. And then we kept going up, and then we saw like half the road was, crumbled, kind of like off the mountain. And I still encouraged to keep going. And then there was one time there was like a tree that fell over, and we couldn't really get any further. So at that point, we just got out. And I don't know if you guys ever seen like horizontal rain because of like hurricanes, like rain going sideways. But what I witnessed in that moment was not horizontal rain, but reverse vertical rain. So rain was going from the bottom and going up. And what was happening was the wind was so strong, pushing against the side of the mountain, that the water was actually shooting upwards from the side of the mountain. And as I was witnessing this, I was like amazed in awe. I was like, my God, this is awesome. Of course, I'm 17, young, ignorant, and adventurous. So I was just soaking it in as this awesomeness of God. And I do relate with God in this way. Like I really feel God's almighty power and just like divinity when I'm in this in nature and I see this kind of grandiose things. So that's one moment that I remember distinctly, really feeling God's power, I would say. Fortunately, we got back, and then we found out that was like the worst hurricane or typhoon in 20 years. And fortunately, we got back safely. Another moment was more personal. I was on STF in America, and I was trying to decide whether or not I should do a second or third year on the second year on STF. And so I was doing a prayer condition and basically asking God, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go back to school and do mission there, or should I continue? Then basically after a 7-day prayer condition, God answered. God answered and said, whatever you want, I will support you. And I was like, that doesn't help, God. Just tell me like what you want me to do. So then I became more serious. And so I did a 21-day prayer condition. And I was in Chicago at that time, and there's a big lake nearby. And I decided it'd be brilliant, this is in the middle of winter, to jump in the lake to show how serious I was to get an answer. It was quite cold. I wouldn't recommend it. But the response was interesting. The response that I got from God was, there are many people who are more smarter and capable than you are. But who among them are doing my will? And that was the kind of thought or response. And there was this kind of sadness in the tone that I got that answer. And for me, I remember my response, my natural response at that time was, wherever you want me to go, I'll be there for you, God. This kind of feeling came out. And yeah, it was really precious. I felt like he was sharing, or God was sharing, an aspect of his heart with me very personally. And he even started with, he didn't even direct me. It was just a statement, like a sad statement. And he even started with, humbling me. There's a lot of smarter people than you, but it was perfect for me. I knew it was a personalized message for me. And so, yeah, that moment has kept me, and I would go back to that moment many times in the next 20 plus years of doing mission, going back to that moment where I felt like God was asking me for help.
Thanks for sharing that. That's an amazing experience, actually. I'm a bit jealous. Yeah, I also did SDF. Fun fact: Eugen was one of my team leaders on SDF, and I know it's when you go on through such experiences, and you put yourself in a position to allow God to speak to you, you can receive some really powerful wisdom and advice for life even. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And the next one is asking for your point of view, tips, feedback on how to overcome fallen nature. So whether that's our selfish desires or a lack of patience, a lack of compassion, how can we deal with our fallen nature?
Great question. So when dealing with fallen nature, one thing is that how do I say this? The more you focus on overcoming the problem, that's where the energy goes. So instead of focusing on what not to do, or how can I overcome fallen nature, a better approach would be to focus on how can I develop my original nature. It seems like it's the same thing, but what you're focusing on is actually different. So if I focus on, how can I stop being selfish? How can I stop, watching porn? Or how can I stop doing, being negative? Guess what? All the energy is going towards the negative. But if you ask the question, how can I be more positive? How can I support my sense of freedom? Or how can I do more acts of goodness? Then you're actually stimulating your original nature. And so it's better to focus. Yes, we all have flaws. We all have faults. But the more we focus on questions that stimulate our original nature, the more naturally our energy and direction will flow in that way.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's such an important point, actually. It's something that my dad always says to me. It's like, focus on what you want to do, not on what you don't want to do, because you give your power to whatever you give your attention to, right? So why get upset and just spend all your time thinking about negative things when you can empower yourself by thinking about the ideal that you're striving towards, what you actually want from life, and get excited about that, get motivated by that, and then act so that you can fulfill something that motivates you. So yeah, I completely agree. Okay, second last question. So it's set up in this way. I think that I have a pretty good personal relationship with God, but I feel that it is shaken whenever I witness some unjust situation that happens to good families from the Unification Church. Why does this happen, and how can I deal with it? How can we be intentional when it comes to being grateful? And many times it seems like there's a mechanical thank you. So when saying thank you, we just say it out of routine, or because we're expected to, but it's not actually genuine. So how can we deal with this and work on our relationship with God?
Yeah, that's a very classic question. Why does bad things happen to good people? And I think one Bible verse comes to mind. I don't remember the specifics, but the essence was, God gives rain and sunlight to both the good and evil alike. And so it's not like God is the master puppeteer and guiding all good things to happen to good people, all bad things to bad people. It's stuff happens. It just is. Neither good nor bad. Things happen. But the thing is, God is there with them throughout it all. So even when bad things happen to good people, it's not that God designed it to be that way. It's things happen, and that God is always there, regardless of good or bad things, with those people. And the more you can connect with that, even the suffering and pain that God goes through by witnessing such things, and if you can see that feeling that you're feeling is exactly what God is feeling towards those families that are suffering, then you can really deepen that understanding. And the robot thank yous, right? Just imagine you thank your parent or thank your friends robotically. Oh, thanks for the food. Thanks, mom, for the food. Thank you again for the food. I mean, it's like anyone you're appreciating. It all comes down to the sincerity with which you're appreciating. And if it doesn't feel sincere, don't say it. And if you're not feeling grateful, it's okay. Don't say you're grateful, but find what you can be truly grateful for and really hone in on that. But this gratitude practice is really powerful. If you can find gratitude in something every day, doesn't have to be the same thing, in something, it really develops your original Hyojung heart, your filial heart that we all have.
Yeah, I could relate with that mechanical or robotic thank you quite a lot, actually. I think for me, it's when you say a prayer that is not sincere, right? You're just saying it out of habit, and I think it's important to recognize that if you don't mean it, you don't need to say it in the first place. You're wasting your time. You're wasting God's time as well. Say it if you mean it, and then God can appreciate that. I like that point. Okay, well, just in the nick of time, somebody asked me a question, so I'm going to combine it with the other question that I had lined up. So, lots of things happen to us happen because of spiritual reasons, but is it possible that things happen just because of randomness or possibility, and because certain actions have predictable results? For example, and it's an interesting example. If you if you throw yourself off a cliff, you're most likely going to die. And I don't know if it really connects too well, but I did say it would be the last question. So just on top of that, how to strengthen our conscience. So maybe, you could apply that to this cliff situation. I don't know. But yeah, I'm sorry to mash up those two questions. Good luck.
Yeah. So I think there's universal principles at play, like gravity. It'd be dumb to jump off a cliff and say, "Hey, God, if you really exist, save me." You're probably going to die, and rightfully so. So there are some universal laws, but there's also universal invisible law, and there's this law of intention, and spirituality. And the power of prayer is because you're putting your thoughts and energy into the universe for a particular thing. There are also equal, prayers and maybe counter intentions that are happening simultaneously. So you don't always get what you want. But if you're persistent and you have additional prayer support towards an outcome, actually, that's also just as real as the physical laws, these spiritual laws. So the more you're able to hone your skill and ability in these spiritual invisible laws, the more you can actually manifest things that you intend in life. And this is something that God gave every human being. It is the power of co-creativity. And so we, among all creation, humans are the only one that has the power to co-create. God gave us this. So if we actually intend something, we can create something that doesn't exist. That's the power that we all were given. So yeah, it's really about learning and knowing. There is some randomness, but everything is energy. So you can organize that randomness with an intention and get a certain outcome. And again, that's very similar to universal physical laws like gravity, jumping off a cliff, so on and so forth, you will fall. The last part, how to develop your conscience, I think the principle explains that ultimately your original mind seeks truth, beauty, and goodness. So the more that you practice seeking truth, beauty, and goodness, the more you strengthen your original mind. So this is like, just like, the more you exercise your muscles, the stronger they get. Same thing, the more you exercise the pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness, these three things, the more your original mind. But even truth, beauty, and goodness, the essence is the original heart. And this is in the principle as well. Heart is defined as the impulse to seek joy through giving and receiving love. So the more that we strengthen this impulse, this irrepressible impulse to seek joy through giving and receiving love, the more stronger our conscience or our original mind becomes.
Fantastic. I really, really like that answer. That's food for thought, something to think about even after this session ends. And I have to say, while you've been speaking, I've been receiving quite a few messages of appreciation. Some people are very much responding well to your answers. Very impressed. People have said it's fun, which is interesting, and people have also been expressing a chef's kiss of appreciation. They're loving the content, and I think so am I. I think maybe it's controversial to say I've enjoyed the Q&A more than the talk itself. So yes, thank you very much for your time, for staying with us up until now, and seeing some hearts from the group as well. So I'd like to show our appreciation one last time with one last round of applause. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Pastor Alchemy. Okay.
Thank you for having me, and enjoy your breakout discussions.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't meant to unmute myself there. So, I mean, the Q&A was just so good. I didn't want to cut it short. So the team discussion is going to be a bit shorter now, but we will have a very quick opportunity to share what was covered in the talk and the Q&A. I think there's lots to discuss, but maybe just share your favorite point, because we don't have too long. So you have to think long and hard about the one point that you really liked. And let's share those points quickly in our groups. And if you need any prompts in the chat, we have these 3 questions. So what were your key takeaways from Naokimi's talk? Did anything stand out to you? How do you think that Naokimi's unificationist background shaped his experience and understanding of God? And lastly, what practical actions or strategies can you take based on the insights presented in the talk? So yeah, those are some prompts. Don't feel limited by those. If you have something else that you really want to share, just share that. Be sincere and enjoy your team discussions. See you soon. And I think that's it. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a great discussion in your teams. And yeah, I'm sorry that we've gone over time slightly, but I'm sure you'll agree it was worth it because that content was amazing. And yeah, before we end for today, I'd like to hand over to Yavi and Vicky, who will briefly introduce our homework. So thank you, guys.
Good evening,
Hello,
everyone.
good evening.
I hope you had a nice session. I think, anyway, interestingly enough, we didn't tell what our homework is about to Naokimi-san, but he touched it at the very last point of his session or his lecture part, his talk. And yeah, I mean, how can we connect to God better than by just using the creativity he gave to us? So the weekly focus or the homework or assignment, whatever you want to call it, this week is going to be create something for Heavenly Parent. So as you can see, there's a cake or a pen or music. Do whatever you want. You can bake a cake, draw something, write a letter to God if you feel you can express to God this way. Really use the creativity he has gifted you with and just dedicate that back to him, basically. So just do something for Heavenly Parent. I think this is a nice thing you can do.
Yeah,
What will you do?
I mean, it's amazing. Every one of us have different talents. And when was the last time I did something for Heavenly Parent? Probably in a long time. So why not use the chance now to do something nice for Heavenly Parent? If you can write a song or, I don't know, record a nice video or even write a letter to True Mother. That's also something that is very nice. Yeah, just take this time. Maybe don't do it immediately. Reflect what will make him happy. What is your special skill or talent that you can offer? And yeah, also feel free to share it with us. I want to shout out for Andre for doing the homework last week and sharing it with everyone. And yeah, let's keep everyone more involved and share together. Make it fun. Homework is not a chore. When I was a kid in school, it was always kind of not fun, but here let's make it fun, let's make it interesting and share it with each other. That's why we're here. That's why we're taking every evening to be together, to create something nice. So I'm looking forward to see all of your beautiful creations and keep it up. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And very quickly before we end the meeting, let's look at next week. Let's get excited already, shall we? Oh, and huge announcement here, very important. The deadline to sign up for the retreat is today. Time is almost up. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity. Please scan the QR code and sign up. Yeah, today's the day, man. Today's the day to sign up. Moving on, next week, we will be looking at conscious true love. And I'm sure many of you are getting excited now looking at the speakers. We will have Uncle Armando and Deborah Kelly. So 2 legends there. You won't want to miss this one. And we'll also have a Q&A next week. You know, it was just so good this time. We have to do it again. So you can already start to brainstorm ideas about what kinds of questions to ask on this topic of conscious true love. With that said, I'd like to just remind the team leaders to please stick around a little longer and see the rest of you next week.